Thank you, sir.
Senator Hagel.
Chairman, thank you. Gentlemen, welcome. As Senator Dodd and others have noted this morning, every American is proud of the service of our American military and those who are serving in whatever capacity in a very difficult situation in Iraq, and we should not at all confuse the sense of support and the gratitude that all Americans have for your leadership and your service. That said, we just as you each have responsibilities. We are elected by the people of our states. To question strategy is not unpatriotic. Now, with that said, Ambassador General, when you look at, and I know you have, the preceding reports that we have talked about today and you have added to with information numbers, General Jones's report, the General Accountability Report. I spent some time with Stuart Bowen, the IG for Iraqi Reconstruction, the latest National Intelligence Estimate, Anthony Cordesman's latest report. Thread throughout those reports, and then listening carefully to what the two of you have said this morning, are some very bright line contradictions. And let's start with the one that almost everyone that I'm aware of has said the core issue is, the most important issue, and that is political reconciliation. And I have quotes from you, General Petraeus, and you, Ambassador Crocker, from the President, every senior member of our government involved in our policy and our strategy in Iraq all agree, as you said, General Petraeus, there will be no military solution in Iraq. Now, when you look at the reports, let's start with the question I asked the Comptroller General last week when I asked him his analysis of the current Iraqi government. Is it a functioning government? And his response to me was, at best, it is dysfunctional. You may disagree with that. But when you take the sum total analysis of these reports that we've looked at, they lead us to a pretty clear conclusion that, in fact, this government in Iraq is dysfunctional. And when you add further to what the Chief of Staff of the United States Army had to say, General Casey, about tactical effects of surges and how minimal they are, and how they will, as Admiral Fallon has said, quote, no amount of time will make, or troops will make much difference unless there is a political reconciliation. I doubt if either of you disagree with that analysis. If you do, please tell the committee why. The other part of this is, it seems to me logical that when you flood a zone with more troops, when you put more troops in Baghdad or Anbar province, you're going to see some consequence to that. You're going to see some result. So I don't think that that's particularly news, that where we have inserted more American troops, costing more American lives, we've seen some differences. But just as one of the most flawed dynamics of our policy invading Iraq 4.5 years ago is we never had enough troops, we still don't have enough troops. So it seems to be logical that it would follow. But when you look at the southern part of Iraq, which I noted neither one of you noted today, one of the senior members of General Jones's task force said to me when he returned, we've probably lost southern Iraq. And I said, you must be kidding. He said, no. He said, the 4 provinces of southern Iraq are gone. They are lawless. There's no Iraqi National Army down there. The police are corrupt, as indicated in General Jones's report, incidentally, as well as others. The British used to have 40,000 troops in Iraq. As you all know, they are at about 5,000. They're huddled in the airport in Basra. What I was told by not just this individual from General Jones's group, but other reports, intelligence reports and other reports I get, actually in the newspaper, is lawless gangs of marauders of Shia militia are in charge in Basra and those 4 provinces. As you both know, 2 governors have been assassinated in the last 2 months. I was told by one individual who has been down there recently that we are essentially paying tribute to these people to keep open the port. Now, the contradictions in my mind, Ambassador and General, as much as you want to put a good picture on this, and that's partly, I understand your job, and I understand your responsibility, and I don't question you believe exactly what you've come before this committee to say. But I have to ask this question. Where is this going? Now, let's don't get down into the underbrush of the 18 benchmarks. And by the way, let's clear some of the record on that. Those 18 benchmarks didn't come from the Congress of the United States. Those benchmarks came from the Iraqi government and this administration. Somehow it's the Congress dictated these benchmarks. Well, we didn't. We didn't. Well, let's not argue about who's got better numbers or better numbers in the context of more frequent numbers. Let's get above the underbrush and look at the strategic context, which essentially we've never done. That's not your fault, General. It's not Ambassador Crocker's fault. It's this administration's fault. We have never, ever looked at Iraq from the larger strategic context of not of Iraq only, but Iran, Syria, and the Middle East. Now, where is this going to go? Because the question that is going to continue to be asked, and you all know it, you have to live with it, when you ask questions, as we all do, about is it worth it, the continued investment of American blood and treasure, when Senator Dodd presents to you the evaluation of one lowly enlisted man, and by the way, I assume you read the New York Times piece 2 weeks ago, 7 NCOs in Iraq today finishing up 15-month commitments. Are we going to dismiss those 7 NCOs? Are they ignorant? They laid out a pretty different scenario, General, Ambassador, from what you're laying out today. Senator Biden said to me once, I think on our first trip to Iraq, he turned around and I was gone. He said, "Where'd Senator Hagel go?" He found me out talking to the guys in the Jeep, the corporals and the sergeants who have to do the dying and the fighting. I've always found that you want an honest evaluation, not through charts, not through the White House evaluations. You ask a sergeant or a corporal what they think. I'll bet on them every time, as I know you will, General. I know you will. Now, where's this going? We've got too many disconnects here, General. Way too many disconnects. Are we going to dismiss the 5 reports that I just noted? I would say to you, Ambassador, one of your quotes, if we don't be careful, we're going to see Iraq devolve into a civil war? Come on. Our National Intelligence Report earlier this year said we're in a civil war, that it's sectarian violence. But yet you said that in your testimony this morning. You gave us a great inventory of what a brutal, bloody dictator Saddam was. Well, we know that. That's not the issue here. Are we going to continue to invest American blood and treasure at the same rate we are doing now? For what? The President said, let's buy time. Buy time? For what? Every report I've seen, and I assume both of you agree with this, there's been really very little, if any, political process that is the ultimate core issue, political reconciliation in Iraq. I know my time is up, but I would appreciate, Mr. Chairman, if I could get an answer from these 2 gentlemen on that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I'll just touch very briefly on the key and critical points you raise here. There is an enormous amount of dysfunctionality in Iraq. That is beyond question. The government, in many respects, is dysfunctional, and members of the government know it. There is a lot of discontent about that in and out of government.